Hello everyone, welcome to Lucid Means program brought to you by Ekam IAS. So in today's session, we will be dealing with the topic Euthanasia. So you can expect a question related to this topic in your GS2 paper because it's very much related to Article 21 of Indian Constitution, that is right to life. So first of all, we will see what is euthanasia. In fact, it is defined as the act or the practice of painlessly putting to death or withdrawing treatment from a person suffering an incurable disease. In short, we can say it's an act which intentionally kills another person to relieve his or her suffering. It's actually categorized in different ways, that is voluntary, non-voluntary, involuntary and so. And another classification is like active euthanasia and passive euthanasia. And to say this particular issue came to limelight in India with the Aruna Shabok case. So now we'll see how it became a topic of discussion in India. The Supreme Court of India upheld that the fundamental right to a meaningful existence includes a person's choice to die without suffering. So that since March 2018, passive euthanasia is legal in India. But the patients must consent through a living will or an advance directive and must be either terminally ill or in a vegetative state to undergo this. In fact, the Supreme Court has legalized passive euthanasia by means of withdrawal of life support or by discontinuation of life-preserving medical treatment, so that a person with a terminal illness is allowed to die in the natural course. And also, the court has invoked its powers under Article 142 to grant legal status to advance directives, which will be hold good until the Parliament enacts any legislation on that matter. So in this context, the question arises, who can draw up a living will or an advance medical directive? So first of all, advance medical directive. It is the instrument through which a person expresses their wish at time he or she is not capable of making an informed decision of how medical treatment should be proceeded and how long it should be continued. And also, an adult who is of a sound and healthy mind can voluntarily, through a writing, can state that when the medical treatment should be withdrawn. In fact, it should contain clear and unambiguous instructions, and it should clearly indicate the decision relating to the circumstances in which the medical treatment should be withdrawn. And also it should mention whether the patient may revoke the instructions or authority at any time. And also that has to specify the name of a guardian or a close relative who, in the event of the patient becoming incapable of taking a decision at relevant time, will be authorized to give consent to refuse or withdraw the medical treatment. And now we can see how should the living will be recorded and preserved. It should be signed by the patient in the presence of two witnesses, that is preferably an independent, and countersigned by a jurisdictional judicial magistrate, that is a first class judicial magistrate. And the witness and the first class judicial magistrate should have to record their satisfaction that the document has been executed voluntarily and without any coercion or compulsion. And this first class judicial magistrate should preserve one copy, and he should forward one copy of the document to the registry of the jurisdictional district court for being preserved. And also, a copy has to be handed over to the municipal corporation or the municipality or panchayat. And regarding its implementation, the living will should be implemented only after being fully satisfied that the patient is terminally ill and the illness is incurable. So we have to note that terminal illness and that illness should be incurable. And also the hospital has to constitute a medical board consisting of the head of the treatment department, and the board have to visit the patient in the presence of his guardian or close relative and should form an opinion to certify or not the instructions in the living will. So this decision shall be regarded as a preliminary opinion. Still it doesn't get over, it continues. After the hospital medical board certifies that the instructions contained in the advance directive are to be carried out, the hospital has to inform the jurisdictional collector about the proposal. That is, this particular decision has to be informed to the district magistrate, that is the district collector of that particular place. And the collector shall constitute another medical board comprising the chief district medical officer as the chairman. So the chairman of the board constituted by the collector will be the chief district medical officer. And then the chairman of the medical board nominated by the collector has to convey the decision of the board to the jurisdictional, that is the first class judicial magistrate, before withdrawing the medical treatment administered to the patient. And that shall be, the magistrate shall authorize the implementation of the decision of the board then. And if the permission is refused by the medical board, it would be open to the executor or his family members or even to the treating doctor or the hospital staff to approach the High Court. So there is a provision for approaching the High Court, and it can be done by anybody who is associating with this particular patient. That is, it can be a family member, that can be the doctor who is treating, even any of the hospital staff can go for that. And in case of advance directive, we have said that, we will see what it is. The hospital can constitute a medical board, as we said, and shall discuss with the family, and if they give consent in writing, that has to be noted. There is no matter of giving oral consent, they have to give it in writing, and it will certify the course of action, and then it shall be informed to the collector. So that is what is advance directive is. And in this case, the practical issues are like the hurdles posed by the religious communities. That is, like you may know, suicide is prohibited in Hindu culture, and this Muslim community also do not favor euthanasia kind of activities. So that's a hurdle. And the moral and ethical value of a doctor, that is, no doctor would be ready to let his patient die. That is, no doctor would want his patient to die. And also cases may come up like when the patient is too ill that he won't be able to take a decision. And finally, there is a huge scope for this provision to get misused. So the chances for misuse is also high. Now we'll see, to prevent this, what can be done. We have to promote palliative care policies as much as possible, and we must utilize this National Health Protection Scheme like facilities that is already providing by the government. And third party monitoring, that is something very important. If third party monitoring is done, it ensures that the manipulation is prevented. To a great extent, we can ensure that manipulations won't take place. And as 241st report of the Law Commission states, certain safeguards can be brought in. And even seminars or talks regarding this can be that helpful to remove the social stigma regarding the concept of euthanasia. So as a concluding note, the reason for opting euthanasia are like depression, hopelessness, pain, and at many times the reason becomes lack of care. So to avoid this, adequate care providing mechanism can be brought in. And in case of India, we do not have a comprehensive law on end of life decision making. So that's all about euthanasia. Hope the topic is clear for you. And the material, you can download it from the link given below. So that's all for the day. Wish you all good luck. Thank you.